The mirror reflects back a face I barely recognize anymore. Designer makeup applied by professionals, hair swept into an elegant updo that cost more than my parents spent on groceries in a month. The ivory silk dress hugs my figure perfectly, custom made by Portland's most exclusive bridal designer. Behind me, my wedding planner adjusts the cathedral-length veil that cascades like liquid moonlight across the marble floor of the bridal suite. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. My phone buzzes with the 15th text from my mother in the past hour. Maya, we're still waiting outside the venue gates. The security won't let us in without proper invitations. This is embarrassing. Your father is having chest pains from the stress. Please, we're your parents. We have a right to be there. I set the phone face down on the antique vanity and apply one final coat of the custom lipstick shade the makeup artist created specifically for this moment. Through the floor-to-ceiling windows of the Sunset Gardens venue, I can see 300 guests arriving in luxury cars, each one holding the thick cream invitation with hand-pressed gold foil that took my wedding planner 3 months to design. 7 years ago, those same parents laughed when Mrs. Patterson from down the street asked when they thought their daughters would settle down. Jessica will have her pick of men, my mother had declared, gesturing toward my sister who was posing for yet another selfie. But Maya? She'd shaken her head with that pitying smile I knew so well. Maya will probably end up with cats. If she's lucky, maybe some desperate man will settle for her when she's 40. The memory should sting, but instead, it feels like looking at someone else's life through thick glass. That awkward 22-year-old girl who hid behind oversized sweaters and avoided eye contact during family gatherings no longer exists. In her place stands a woman who built a 6-figure photography business from nothing, who has her work displayed in galleries across 3 states, and who in 20 minutes will marry the most sought-after wedding photographer on the West Coast. The coffee shop's ancient espresso machine hisses like an angry cat as steam escapes from yet another loose fitting. I wipe my hands on the brown apron that's seen better days, the fabric stained with 7 months of spilled lattes and chocolate syrup accidents. The morning rush at Grind Coffee House moves with the predictable rhythm of a small town where everyone knows everyone else's order by heart. Mrs. Davidson wants her usual skinny vanilla latte with an extra shot, no foam. Mr. Peterson needs his black coffee hot enough to strip paint, but somehow never burns his tongue when he downs it in 3 gulps before heading to his law office. The Burke twins, fresh out of high school, giggle over their matching caramel macchiatos, while scrolling through social media on phones their parents definitely can't afford. My own phone sits silent in my back pocket, a stark contrast to Jessica's device that buzzes constantly with notifications, texts, and calls from the parade of boys who orbit around her like planets around the sun. At 20, my sister has already cycled through more relationships than I've had meaningful conversations with members of the opposite sex. The bell above the door chimes, and I look up to see Jessica herself walking in, her blonde hair catching the morning light streaming through the windows. She's wearing a sundress that probably costs more than I make in 2 weeks, her makeup flawless even at 8 in the morning, the kind of effortless beauty that makes middle-aged women sigh and whisper about how some girls have all the luck. Maya, make it a double shot today. She slumps against the counter with practiced drama. Tyler kept me up until 2 talking about his feelings. Why do guys think girls want to hear about their emotional baggage on the 3rd date? I start preparing her usual drink, a complicated creation involving oat milk, lavender syrup, and enough caffeine to power a small aircraft. The irony isn't lost on me that while Jessica complains about too much male attention, I can't remember the last time a man looked at me twice outside of ordering coffee. Speaking of Tyler, Jessica continues, examining her perfectly manicured nails. Mom thinks he might propose soon. She's already started looking at venues for the engagement party. Can you imagine? I'm only 20 and already planning my wedding. The espresso machine chooses that moment to release another angry hiss, providing the perfect soundtrack for my internal response. Jessica has been dating Tyler for exactly 6 weeks, but in our family, her romantic prospects are treated with the seriousness of international diplomacy. Every boy who shows interest becomes a potential son-in-law in my mother's mind, complete with background checks and discussions about his family's financial stability. Here's your coffee. I slide the cup across the counter, careful not to let my expression reveal anything. Jessica wraps her fingers around the warm ceramic, her engagement ring from 2 boyfriends ago catching the light. She never returns the jewelry, claiming each piece holds sentimental value, but I suspect she enjoys the way multiple diamonds confuse people about her relationship status. Oh, and Maya, she pauses at the door, turning back with an afterthought expression. Mom wants you home for dinner tonight. Tyler's parents are coming over, and she needs extra hands in the kitchen. Try to wear something nice for once, okay? First impressions matter. The door closes behind her with a soft chime, leaving me alone with the familiar sting of being reduced to kitchen help, not invited to join the dinner as an equal member of the family, but summoned to serve and clean up afterward. The role I've occupied for so long it feels carved into my identity like initials in tree bark. Jake Morrison emerges from the back office, carrying a stack of invoices and wearing the tired expression of a man who's been balancing the books since 5 this morning. At 35, he's managed this coffee shop for 7 years, transforming it from a failing venture into Riverside's most popular gathering place. His success came from understanding that people don't just want coffee, they want community, warmth, and a place where everyone knows their name. Your sister seems cheerful this morning. He sets the paperwork on the counter and begins organizing the register for the next shift, wedding bells in the air again. 3rd time this year. I continue wiping down equipment with more force than strictly necessary. She collects engagement possibilities like some people collect stamps. Jake laughs, the sound genuine and warm. He's one of the few people in Riverside who treats me like I have thoughts worth hearing, opinions that matter, and potential beyond my current circumstances. Under his management, I've learned inventory control, customer service strategies, and basic business accounting. Skills my family considers unimportant but that have given me a sense of competence I've never felt at home. What about you, Maya? Any romantic prospects on the horizon? His question holds no judgment, just friendly curiosity from someone who's watched me navigate the past 7 months with quiet determination. I laugh, the sound more bitter than intended. My parents have made it clear that my romantic future is somewhere between unlikely and miraculous. According to my mother, I lack the natural charm that draws men, the social skills that make relationships effortless, and the physical attributes that inspire lasting devotion. My father's assessment is even more direct. Maya's too serious, he announced at last month's family barbecue when Mrs. Chen from next door made polite inquiries about both daughters' dating lives. Men want fun, easygoing girls who make them feel good about themselves. Maya makes people work too hard for conversation. The words had landed like physical blows, made worse by their casual delivery over grilled hamburgers and potato salad. Not cruel enough to constitute outright abuse, but pointed enough to leave marks on my self-esteem that are still tender to the touch. Jake's expression shifts, and I realize I've been quiet too long, lost in memories that serve no purpose except to reinforce lessons I already know too well. He has an uncanny ability to read the emotions.
Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story.
Emotional weather patterns that cross my face, probably from years of managing employees and customers who bring their personal storms into the shop. You know what I think? He leans against the counter, giving me his full attention. I think your family doesn't see you clearly. They're so focused on obvious things that they miss what's actually interesting about people. Before I can respond, the bell chimes again, and Mrs. Eleanor Hoffman enters with her usual slow, deliberate steps. At 73, she moves through the world with the careful precision of someone who's learned that rushing leads to falling, and falling at her age leads to complications that can last months. She's been a regular since my second week at Grind Coffee House, always ordering the same thing: medium coffee with real cream, no sugar, and a blueberry muffin warmed for exactly 30 seconds. But unlike most customers who grab their order and disappear into their daily routines, Mrs. Hoffman lingers. She asks questions about my life, remembers details from previous conversations, and listens to my answers with the focused attention that's become so rare in a world of constant distraction. "Good morning, Maya." Her voice carries the cultured accent of someone who grew up when proper diction mattered, when people spoke in complete sentences, and chose their words with care. "How are you today, dear?" "I'm well, Mrs. Hoffman. The usual this morning." She nods, settling onto her favorite stool at the counter. Over the months, I've learned pieces of her story through casual conversation and careful observation. She's a widow whose husband died 3 years ago after 47 years of marriage. Her children live in different states and visit twice a year with grandchildren who call dutifully on holidays but seem like strangers during the brief conversations I've overheard. But Mrs. Hoffman possesses something that draws my attention in ways I don't fully understand. She carries herself with quiet confidence, speaks about her opinions without apology, and treats everyone from the mailman to the bank president with the same respectful courtesy. There's a completeness to her presence, as if she knows exactly who she is, and feels no need to apologize for taking up space in the world. As I prepare her coffee, she watches me with eyes that seem to see more than most people bother to look for. Jake returns to his office paperwork, leaving us alone in the comfortable silence that's developed between us over months of brief but meaningful interactions. "Maya, dear, may I ask you something personal?" Her question comes as I'm warming her muffin, the tone gentle but serious enough to make me pause. "Of course. Do you have interests outside of work? Hobbies, perhaps? Things that make you feel alive and engaged with the world?" The question catches me off guard because it assumes I have inner life worth exploring, desires that extend beyond my current circumstances. Most people in Riverside see me as Jake's reliable employee, Jessica's quiet sister, or the Chen girl who never quite bloomed the way everyone expected. I hesitate, unsure how to explain the complicated relationship I have with the vintage camera hidden in my bedroom closet. My grandmother's Pentax K1000, inherited 3 years ago along with a collection of photography books and undeveloped film that reveal a creative passion I never knew she possessed. The camera calls to me during quiet moments at home, when Jessica's latest drama has exhausted our parents, and the house falls into rare silence. I've taught myself the basics through online tutorials and library books, practicing with the few rolls of film I can afford on my coffee shop wages. But photography feels like a secret indulgence too impractical and expensive to share with family members who measure success by income and social status. I take pictures sometimes. The admission feels like revealing something private and precious. Nothing professional, just things around town that catch my eye. Mrs. Hoffman's face lights up with interest, transforming her features in a way that makes me understand how beautiful she must have been as a young woman. "What kind of things do you photograph?" "Buildings mostly, old houses with interesting architecture, the way light falls across different surfaces throughout the day, people when they don't know they're being watched, when their faces show genuine emotions instead of posed expressions." The words come easier as I describe my secret passion, revealing thoughts I've never spoken aloud. Mrs. Hoffman listens with the focused attention that makes me feel like my thoughts matter, like my observations about light and shadow and human expression hold value beyond my own private entertainment. "That sounds wonderful, dear. Photography is such an important art form, and so few young people take the time to really see the world around them. She pauses, sipping her coffee thoughtfully. Would you be interested in learning more? I mean, proper instruction from someone who understands the technical aspects as well as the artistic vision. I laugh, the sound carrying more disappointment than humor. I'd love to, but photography classes are expensive, and my parents think art is a waste of time unless you're already successful enough that it doesn't matter. Mrs. Hoffman sets down her cup with deliberate precision, studying my face with an intensity that makes me wonder what she's seeing. Maya, what would you say if I told you I might be able to help with that? Before I can ask what she means, the morning rush resumes with a vengeance. The door chimes repeatedly as customers stream in, each one needing immediate attention, complex orders, and the friendly service that keeps Grind Coffee House competitive with the chain stores that have opened in the strip mall outside town. Mrs. Hoffman finishes her muffin in companionable silence while I work, but I catch her watching me several times with an expression I can't quite decipher. She leaves her usual generous tip and touches my hand briefly as she says goodbye, the gesture carrying a warmth that lingers long after she's disappeared down Main Street. The rest of my shift passes in a blur of familiar faces and routine orders, but Mrs. Hoffman's question echoes in my mind like a song I can't quite shake. The possibility that someone might take my photography interests seriously, might consider them worthy of development and investment, feels too good to risk hoping for. When Jake locks the front door at closing time, I'm still thinking about cameras and light and the way genuine emotion transforms ordinary faces into something worth capturing forever. For the first time in months, I'm eager to get home and retrieve my grandmother's camera from its hiding place, ready to spend the evening exploring the streets of Riverside through a lens that shows me possibilities I'm only beginning to understand. The walk home takes me past the houses where I grew up, their familiar facades holding memories of birthday parties, summer barbecues, and the countless small moments that shape childhood perspectives about family hierarchy and personal worth. Jessica's car sits in our driveway next to my parents' modest sedan, preparing for the evening's performance where Tyler's family will be treated to the full display of our family's social aspirations. Inside, I can already hear my mother's voice directing preparations, assigning tasks, and ensuring that everything appears more successful and organized than our daily reality typically allows. My role in tonight's production has already been determined: helpful but invisible, competent but not competitive, with Jessica's starring role as the potential future daughter-in-law. But for the first time in years, I have something else to think about besides family dynamics and social expectations. Mrs. Hoffman's offer hangs in my mind like a door I'm not quite ready to open, but can't stop looking toward. Photography lessons from someone who understands both technical skills and artistic vision could change everything about how I see myself and what I believe about my future. The thought terrifies and exhilarates me in equal measure because it represents the first real opportunity anyone has ever offered to help me become something more than I currently am. Not charity or pity, but genuine investment in potential that most people don't bother to look for. As I climb the front steps to our house, I make a decision that feels both small and monumental. Tomorrow morning, I'll ask Mrs. Hoffman what she meant by her offer. Whatever the answer, it has to be better than spending the rest of my life serving coffee and watching Jessica collect engagement rings like trophies while our parents plan her future and dismiss mine as an afterthought. The dinner table conversation flows around me like water around a stone, familiar patterns of praise and attention that never quite include my presence in any meaningful way. Tyler sits beside Jessica, his nervous energy obvious in the way he fidgets with his napkin and glances repeatedly at my father for approval. His parents, the Hendersons, occupy the chairs usually reserved for special occasions, their polite smiles and careful compliments creating the atmosphere of a job interview disguised as a social gathering. Your Jessica is absolutely lovely, Mrs. Henderson tells my mother while cutting her roast chicken into precise small pieces. Such beautiful hair, and that smile could light up a room. You must be so proud. My mother beams with the satisfied glow of someone receiving validation for her most successful project. Jessica has always been our sunshine girl. Even as a baby, she never cried, never fussed. People would stop us on the street just to comment on how beautiful she was. The conversation continues in this vein for 20 minutes, each comment building the mythology of Jessica's exceptional qualities while I refill water glasses and clear empty plates. Tyler's accomplishments receive similar treatment: his recent promotion at the marketing firm, his volunteer work with the Youth Soccer League, his plans to purchase a house in the newer development on the outskirts of town. Every detail examined and approved like merchandise being evaluated for purchase. And Maya? Mr. Henderson asks suddenly, perhaps noticing that half the family has been absent from the conversation. What are your plans, dear? The question lands in a brief silence that stretches just long enough to become uncomfortable. My parents exchange one of those married couple looks that communicate volumes without words, the kind of silent conversation that excludes everyone else at the table while making their opinions perfectly clear. Maya's still figuring things out, my father says finally, his tone carrying the patient indulgence usually reserved for discussing children who haven't yet learned to tie their shoes. She's working at the coffee shop downtown, while she decides what she wants to do with her life. The phrase hangs in the air with all its implications, still figuring things out at 22, as if my age represents some kind of moral failing or lack of direction that reflects poorly on the family's ability to launch productive adults into the world. Jessica, 2 years younger, apparently has her entire future mapped out through marriage and social connections, while I remain a question mark that embarrasses them in polite company. That's wonderful, Mrs. Henderson says with the kind of forced enthusiasm people use when trying to find something positive to say about obviously disappointing news. Coffee shops can be such interesting places to work. You must meet all sorts of people. Her attempt at kindness only emphasizes how little there is to say about my current circumstances. My job exists in the category of things people do while waiting for real life to begin, temporary employment that indicates a lack of ambition or clear goals, rather than honest work that pays bills and teaches valuable skills. Maya's always been the artistic type, my mother adds, and I recognize the tone she uses when trying to spin my interests into something that sounds more acceptable to middle-class dinner party standards. She takes pictures with an old camera that belonged to her grandmother. It's more of a hobby than anything serious, of course. The dismissal stings because it reduces my photography to a quaint pastime, like collecting stamps or doing crossword puzzles. Something harmless that keeps me occupied without requiring anyone to take it seriously, or consider whether it might represent genuine talent worth developing. Tyler nods politely, his attention already drifting back toward Jessica, who's describing her recent shopping trip to Portland with friends whose parents fund their recreational activities without expecting anything in return. The conversation moves on to safer topics like vacation plans and home improvement projects, subjects where everyone can participate without revealing uncomfortable truths about ambition, success, or the different ways families invest in their children's futures. I excuse myself to start clearing the dessert plates, grateful for tasks that keep my hands busy and provide legitimate reasons to avoid extended eye contact with people who see me as a disappointment requiring explanation. In the kitchen, I scrape remnants of chocolate cake into the garbage disposal and load dishes into our ancient dishwasher with mechanical precision. Through the doorway, I can hear Jessica's laughter mixing with Tyler's deeper chuckle as she tells some story about her college friends that involves just enough mild drama to seem interesting without being actually concerning. The kind of entertaining anecdote that makes parents feel confident their daughter navigates social situations with appropriate judgment and natural charm. Maya, Could you start the coffee? My mother calls from the dining room. The Hendersons would like decaf, and Tyler takes his with sugar but no cream. Of course she knows Tyler's coffee preferences despite this being only the second time he's visited our house. My mother possesses an encyclopedic knowledge of every boy who's ever shown interest in Jessica, their dietary restrictions, career aspirations, and family backgrounds. She could probably recite Tyler's college transcript and his parents' mortgage balance from memory. The coffee maker gurgles to life, filling the kitchen with the rich aroma that's become so associated with work that I rarely enjoy it anymore. Outside the window, Mrs. Hoffman's house sits dark except for a single lamp in what I assume is her living room. I wonder what she's doing this evening, whether she's reading or watching television or working on some project that brings her satisfaction. Her offer from this morning continues to puzzle me, because it suggests she sees potential that no one else, including myself, has bothered to recognize. Photography lessons from someone with real knowledge and experience could transform my amateur experiments into actual skills, but the possibility seems too good to trust without understanding what she expects in return. The coffee finishes brewing, and I arrange cups on a tray with cream and sugar, adding the small spoons my mother insists on for formal occasions despite their complete impracticality for stirring beverages. As I carry everything back to the dining room, I catch fragments of conversation about engagement timelines and venue options, Jessica's voice bright with excitement about possibilities that everyone else treats as inevitable conclusions rather than hopeful dreams. Just as I'm setting the tray on the side table, Tyler clears his throat with the nervous energy of someone preparing to make an important announcement. The conversation stops abruptly, all attention focused on his face as he reaches into his jacket pocket with shaking fingers. I've been thinking about this for weeks, he says, his voice slightly hoarse with emotion. Jessica, I know we haven't been together very long, but I can't imagine my life without you in it. The small velvet box appears in his palm like magic, and Jessica's gasp fills the sudden silence with pure crystalline joy. Her hands fly to her mouth, eyes wide with surprise that looks genuine despite the fact that this moment has been anticipated, discussed and planned for weeks by everyone except Tyler himself. Jessica Marie Chen, will you marry me? The proposal unfolds with fairy tale perfection. Jessica's tears of happiness, Tyler's relieved smile when she says yes, my parents' proud embraces and excited congratulations. Mrs. Henderson dabs her eyes with her napkin, while Mr. Henderson claps his son on the shoulder with paternal approval. The diamond catches the dining room light, sending tiny rainbows across the wall as Jessica extends her hand for everyone to admire. I remain standing beside the coffee tray, holding the cream pitcher in suddenly numb fingers, watching my family's dream come true in real time. This is the moment my parents have been building toward since Jessica turned 16 and started dating seriously. The validation of their investment in her social development, their careful cultivation of her appearance and personality, their strategic guidance of her choices toward this exact outcome. Oh my goodness, my mother says, reaching for Jessica's hand to examine the ring more closely. It's absolutely beautiful, Tyler. You have excellent taste. 3 carats, Tyler says proudly, clearly pleased with himself for selecting something that meets with family approval. I wanted something worthy of Jessica. The phrase hangs in the air with all its implications about worthiness and value, about the kind of woman who deserves 3 carats and the kind who should probably expect something more modest, if anything at all. Jessica holds her hand at different angles, admiring the way the diamond fractures light into component colors, each facet reflecting her bright future back at her in miniature. We'll need to start planning immediately, my mother continues, her voice taking on the organizational tone she uses for complex projects. Spring weddings are lovely, but if we want the country club, we'll need to book at least 18 months in advance. And photographers get reserved early too, especially the good ones.
The mention of photographers makes me think of Mrs. Hoffman again, wondering what kind of wedding pictures she might have taken during her career, whether she understood how to capture the emotional complexity of these moments beyond just recording the obvious joy and celebration. Maya, why don't you help me clear these dishes? My mother suggests, though it sounds more like a directive than a request. Let the happy couple have some privacy to discuss their plans. I follow her into the kitchen, grateful to escape the intensity of attention focused on Jessica's ring and Tyler's nervous excitement. My mother immediately begins planning aloud, her voice carrying the satisfaction of someone whose long-term strategy has finally paid off in measurable results. This is exactly what I hoped would happen, she says, while rinsing plates in the sink. Tyler comes from such a nice family, and his job has real growth potential. Jessica will never have to worry about financial security. The implication hovers unspoken between us. Jessica has successfully completed the task that my parents consider most important for daughters, attracting a
husband who can provide social status and economic stability. Her beauty and charm have accomplished their intended purpose, securing her future through marriage to someone whose credentials meet with family approval. What about you, Maya? My mother asks suddenly, her tone shifting to something that might be concern if it weren't layered with disappointment. Don't you think it's time to start putting yourself out there more? Jessica won't be the only daughter to give us grandchildren, I hope. The question reveals everything about how my parents view my purpose and potential, not as an individual with my own dreams and ambitions, but as a secondary version of Jessica who should aspire to similar achievements through similar methods. The assumption that marriage and children represent the only meaningful success available to daughters, with everything else serving as temporary distractions until real life begins. I don't know, Mom. I'm still focused on work and figuring out what I want to do next. But you can't work at a coffee shop forever. Maya, you need to think about your future. Look at Jessica. She's 2 years younger and already engaged to a wonderful man with a good job. Don't you want that kind of security and happiness? The comparison stings, because it reduces my entire existence to a measurement against Jessica's accomplishments, finding me wanting in every category that my parents consider important. My interests, my skills, my daily experiences matter only insofar as they contribute to or detract from the ultimate goal of replicating Jessica's successful trajectory. I focus on loading the dishwasher with increased intensity, using the familiar task to avoid responding to questions that have no satisfactory answers. How do I explain that Jessica's happiness looks like a beautiful prison to me, that her engagement represents the closing of doors rather than the opening of possibilities? How do I articulate the growing certainty that I want something different from life without being able to name exactly what that something might be? You know what your problem is, Maya? My mother continues, apparently interpreting my silence as invitation for further analysis. You're too picky. You wait for perfect instead of recognizing good when it comes along. Men can sense that kind of unrealistic expectation, and it makes them nervous. The criticism lands with familiar precision, targeting insecurities I've carried for years about my inability to attract romantic attention. According to my mother's logic, my single status results from character flaws that prevent me from appreciating available options, not from any shortage of interested candidates or incompatibility with the men who've crossed my path. Maybe you should consider online dating, she suggests, warming to her theme. Mrs. Patterson's daughter met her husband that way, and they seem very happy. You just need to put yourself out there and be more open to possibilities. The conversation in the dining room has shifted to wedding planning logistics, Jessica's voice bright with excitement as she and Tyler discuss guest lists and venue options. Their happiness feels genuine and uncomplicated, the natural result of two people who want the same things from life and see each other as the means to achieve those goals. I finish loading the last plate and close the dishwasher with perhaps more force than necessary, the metallic clang emphasizing my frustration with conversations that circle the same themes without ever acknowledging that different people might have different definitions of success and happiness. I think I'll go for a walk before bed, I announce, untying my apron and hanging it on the hook beside the back door. Maya, you can't just leave in the middle of Jessica's engagement celebration. My mother's voice carries the slightly scandalized tone she uses when someone violates the family script for important occasions. I'm not leaving the celebration, Mom. I'm just stepping outside for some air. I'll be back in 30 minutes. The night air feels cooler than expected, carrying the scent of Mrs. Hoffman's roses from her carefully tended garden next door. Street lamps cast pools of warm light along the sidewalk, creating the kind of photographic opportunities that would have been impossible to capture properly with my current equipment and limited technical knowledge. Walking helps clear my mind of dinner party conversations and family expectations, replacing them with the simple rhythm of footsteps on concrete and the quiet sounds of neighborhood evening routines. Television light flickers behind curtained windows, and somewhere a dog barks once before falling silent again. I find myself standing in front of Mrs. Hoffman's house without consciously deciding to stop there, drawn by the warm light spilling from her living room window and the promise of conversation that doesn't revolve around my shortcomings or Jessica's achievements. Before I can lose courage, I walk up her front path and ring the doorbell. Maya, what a lovely surprise! Mrs. Hoffman opens the door wearing a soft cardigan and reading glasses, a book still clutched in her hand. Is everything all right, dear? I'm fine. I was just walking and saw your light. I hope I'm not disturbing you. Not at all. Please come in. She steps aside to let me enter, and I'm immediately struck by how different her house feels from my own. Where our home buzzes with constant activity and competing demands for attention, Mrs. Hoffman's space radiates calm and intentional arrangement. Books line the walls from floor to ceiling, their spines creating patterns of color and texture that suggest years of careful collecting and genuine reading. Framed photographs occupy every available surface, not the formal portraits that dominate our living room, but candid shots that capture real moments and authentic expressions. I was just making some tea. Would you care for a cup? I accept gratefully, following her into a kitchen that manages to be both functional and beautiful, with copper pots hanging from hooks and herbs growing in small pots along the windowsill. Everything suggests someone who takes pleasure in simple daily routines and has arranged her environment to support rather than complicate those activities. How was your evening, dear? Mrs. Hoffman asks as she fills the kettle and sets it on the stove. My sister got engaged tonight. The words come out more flatly than I intended, carrying none of the enthusiasm that such news should inspire. Mrs. Hoffman pauses in her tea preparations, studying my face with the careful attention that's become so familiar during our morning coffee shop conversations. Congratulations to your family. That must be exciting for everyone. Her response acknowledges the news without assuming how I should feel about it, leaving space for whatever complicated emotions I might be experiencing without judgment or correction. The relief of being allowed to have my own reaction instead of the prescribed family joy is almost overwhelming. It is exciting, I say carefully. Jessica's very happy, and Tyler seems like a good person. My parents are thrilled. And how are you feeling about it all? The question opens something in my chest that's been tightly closed since Tyler pulled out the ring box. Mrs. Hoffman settles into the chair across from me, her full attention focused on my answer in a way that suggests she genuinely wants to understand my perspective rather than correct it. I'm happy for Jessica. I begin slowly, trying to sort through emotions that feel tangled and contradictory. She's getting exactly what she's always wanted, but watching everyone celebrate makes me realize how different my dreams are from what my family expects from me. The kettle begins to whistle softly, and Mrs. Hoffman rises to prepare our tea with practiced movements that suggest this ritual brings her comfort and pleasure. She returns with 2 steaming cups and settles back into her chair, creating the kind of peaceful atmosphere that encourages honest conversation. Tell me about your dreams, Maya. What does success look like in your imagination? The question catches me off guard, because no one has ever asked it before. My parents speak about my future in terms of what I should want rather than what I actually desire, measuring my progress against Jessica's achievements instead of any goals I might set for myself. I want to create something beautiful that matters to people. I say finally, I want to capture moments that tell stories and help others see the world differently. When I take pictures, I feel like I'm doing something important, something that's truly mine. Mrs. Hoffman nods thoughtfully, sipping her tea while considering my words. Photography is a wonderful art form, Maya. It requires both technical skill and creative vision, patience and intuition. Have you given any thought to pursuing it more seriously? The question brings me back to her mysterious offer from this morning, the possibility that's been hovering at the edges of my consciousness all day like a door I'm afraid to approach too closely. I'd love to learn more, but I don't know where to start. Photography classes are expensive, and my parents think artistic pursuits are impractical unless you're already successful enough that money doesn't matter. Mrs. Hoffman sets down her cup with deliberate precision, the same gesture I noticed this morning when she seemed to be making some kind of decision about my future. Maya, I wonder if you'd be interested in hearing about something that might sound a bit unusual. I have a proposition that could benefit both of us. If you're open to the possibility, my heart begins beating faster, though I'm not sure whether from excitement or nervousness about what she might be about to suggest. Several years ago, my late husband and I converted the garage behind this house into a photography studio. Edward was quite accomplished. You see, he did portraits and wedding photography for many families in Riverside over the course of 30 years. She pauses, looking toward the window that faces her backyard, and I can see emotion crossing her features as she talks about her husband. Since Edward passed away, the studio has been sitting empty. All of his equipment, his developing chemicals, his reference books and lighting setups, everything just gathering dust, because I can't bear to get rid of it, but I don't have the energy to use it myself anymore. The possibility of what she might be leading up to makes my throat tight with hope and disbelief. I've been thinking that perhaps it's time for that studio to serve its purpose again, to help someone develop their talents the way Edward always hoped his work would inspire others. Maya, would you be interested in learning photography in exchange for helping me organize Edward's materials and maintain the studio? The offer hangs between us like a gift I'm afraid to touch in case it disappears. Access to professional equipment, instruction from someone with real knowledge, and the chance to develop skills that could transform my amateur experiments into genuine capabilities. Mrs. Hoffman, that sounds incredible, but I couldn't possibly accept something so generous without being able to pay you properly for lessons. She waves away my concern with a gentle smile. My dear, at my age, the most valuable payment anyone can offer is purpose and companionship. Seeing Edward's studio used again, watching someone discover the joy he found in photography, that would be worth far more than money could buy. The conversation continues for another hour, as Mrs. Hoffman describes the studio equipment and shares stories about Edward's photography career. By the time I walk back to my own house, my mind buzzes with possibilities I never dared to imagine. The engagement celebration has moved to the living room, where Jessica models her ring for Tyler's parents, while my own parents discuss wedding planning timelines. I slip upstairs to my room and retrieve my grandmother's camera from its hiding place in the closet, handling it with new reverence as I consider what Mrs. Hoffman's offer might mean for my future. For the first time in years, I have something to look forward to that belongs entirely to me, a path toward becoming someone my family might finally see as worthy of respect and attention. The next morning arrives gray and drizzling, typical Pacific Northwest weather that turns riverside streets into impressionist paintings of reflected light and blurred edges. I arrive at Grind Coffee House, 30 minutes early, eager to start my shift, and equally eager to see Mrs. Hoffman when she arrives for her usual coffee and muffin. Jake notices my unusual energy immediately, commenting on the smile I apparently can't stop wearing as I prepare for the morning rush. Someone's in a good mood today. Did you win the lottery overnight? Something like that, I tell him, checking the coffee machines and arranging pastries in the display case with more attention to aesthetic presentation than usual. Everything looks different this morning, charged with potential I've never noticed before. Mrs. Hoffman arrives precisely at her usual time, settling onto her favorite stool, with the satisfied expression of someone who's looking forward to a pleasant conversation. Good morning, Maya. Have you given any thought to our discussion last night? I've thought about nothing else. Mrs. Hoffman, if you're serious about the offer, I'd love to accept. Her face lights up with genuine pleasure, the kind of happiness that comes from being able to give something meaningful to another person. Wonderful. Would Saturday afternoon work for you to see the studio? I can show you Edward's equipment, and we can discuss what kind of instruction might be most helpful for your current skill level. The arrangement feels too good to be true, but Mrs. Hoffman's sincerity convinces me to trust in possibilities that seemed impossible just 24 hours ago. We make plans to meet Saturday at 2 o'clock, and she promises to gather some of Edward's beginner photography books for me to study in advance. The rest of my shift passes quickly, filled with regular customers, whose familiar orders now feel like small celebrations rather than routine transactions. Even Mrs. Davidson's complicated latte requirements and Mr. Peterson's impatience with anything less than scalding coffee seem charming rather than challenging. During my lunch break, I call Jessica to congratulate her properly on the engagement, recognizing that my distracted response last night probably seemed ungracious, even though my feelings about her news remain complicated. Maya, Jessica's voice bubbles with excitement. I'm so glad you called. I wanted to ask if you'd be my maid of honor. I know we haven't always been super close, but you're my sister and this wouldn't feel right without you standing beside me. The invitation surprises me because our relationship has always been more competitive than collaborative, shaped by family dynamics that positioned us as different types of daughters rather than allies with shared interests and experiences. Of course I'd be honored, Jessica. Have you started thinking about dates and venues? We spend 20 minutes discussing wedding planning logistics, and I find myself genuinely enjoying the conversation once I stop interpreting Jessica's happiness as a judgment on my own circumstances. Her engagement doesn't diminish my possibilities or highlight my failures. It simply represents one path among many toward building a meaningful life. That afternoon, rain continues falling with the steady persistence that makes autumn in Oregon feel both melancholy and full of promise. I walk home through streets that glisten with reflected light, every surface transformed into potential photographic subjects that I now have reason to hope I might someday capture properly. Inside our house, wedding planning has already taken over the dining room table, with magazines and printouts, and lists covering every available surface. My mother coordinates details with the focused intensity she usually reserves for major household projects, while Jessica tries on different combinations of jewelry to see what complements her engagement ring. How was work today, Maya? My father asks from his usual evening position in front of the television, though his attention remains focused on the news rather than my answer. Really good. Actually, I think I might start taking some photography lessons soon. The statement draws more attention than I expected, both parents looking up from their respective activities, with expressions of polite curiosity, mixed with slight concern. Photography lessons, my mother repeats. Maya, those kinds of classes can be quite expensive. Are you sure that's the best use of your money right now? Actually, I worked out a trade arrangement with someone who has professional equipment and experience. I'll help her organize some materials in exchange for instruction. My father mutes the television, giving me his full attention for the first time in months. Who is this person? Maya, you need to be careful about arrangements that sound too good to be true. Mrs. Hoffman from next door. Her late husband was a professional photographer, and she offered to teach me how to use his equipment properly. Eleanor Hoffman, my mother asks, her tone suggesting she's accessing her mental database of neighborhood social dynamics. I didn't know her husband did photography. She keeps to herself mostly, but she seems like a respectable woman. The conversation continues for several minutes, my parents asking questions about Mrs. Hoffman's qualifications and the specifics of our arrangement. Their caution stems from genuine concern about my welfare, but also from deeper skepticism about my ability to recognize and pursue legitimate opportunities for self-improvement. Just be careful not to let this photography thing distract you from more practical concerns. My father concludes, hobbies are fine, but you still need to think about building a real career and finding someone to settle down with. The advice carries familiar themes about the temporary nature of my interests and the importance of focusing on conventional markers of adult success rather than pursuing creative fulfillment that might not lead anywhere economically viable. That night, I lie in bed holding my grandmother's camera and thinking about Saturday's appointment with Mrs. Hoffman, imagining what Edward's studio might look like and what kinds of things I might learn about composition, lighting, and the technical aspects of creating images that capture more than just surface appearances. For the first time since Jessica's engagement announcement, I feel genuinely excited about my own future, rather than resigned to whatever circumstances develop around me. Photography lessons represent the beginning of something that belongs entirely to me, a skill set and creative outlet that no one can diminish through comparison or criticism. The rain continues pattering against my bedroom window, creating rhythms that sound almost musical in the darkness. Tomorrow will bring another day at the coffee shop, more wedding planning conversations, and the usual family dynamics that position me as the daughter still figuring things out. But underneath all of that familiar routine, something new is beginning to take shape, something that might eventually transform how I see myself and how others see me in return. Saturday afternoon sunlight streams through Mrs. Hoffman's kitchen window as she leads me down a stone pathway toward the converted garage that houses Edward's photography studio. The building looks unremarkable from the outside, white clapboard siding, and a simple wooden door that gives no hint of the treasures waiting inside. My hands shake slightly as Mrs. Hoffman turns the key, and I realize I'm holding my breath with anticipation
attention, the door swings open to reveal a space that feels like stepping into a different world entirely. Professional lighting equipment stands arranged throughout the room, elegant metal stands, holding softboxes and umbrellas that catch the afternoon light and scatter it in interesting patterns across the walls. Camera bodies of various ages and conditions occupy shelves along one wall, some looking like museum pieces, while others appear modern enough for current professional use. Edward collected equipment, over 30 years of working in photography, Mrs. Hoffman explains, running her fingers along the edge of a large wooden table that dominates the center of the space. He believed that understanding different tools helped him adapt to any situation, whether he was shooting portraits in controlled conditions or capturing candid moments at outdoor events. I walk slowly through the studio, afraid to touch anything but desperate to examine every piece of equipment more closely. Enlargers for developing photographs stand in one corner, their mechanical precision suggesting possibilities I've never considered for creating images beyond what the camera captures initially. Chemical trays and measuring tools occupy another area, everything organized with the methodical care of someone who understood that great results come from attention to detail. This is incredible, Mrs. Hoffman. I can't believe you're willing to share all of this with me. She smiles, settling onto a stool beside the main work table. Edward would have loved meeting someone with your enthusiasm for photography. He always said that equipment without passion is just expensive decoration, but passion combined with proper tools can create magic. Over the next 2 hours, Mrs. Hoffman introduces me to the basic functions of different camera bodies, explaining how aperture settings control depth of field and shutter speeds affect motion blur. Her knowledge comes from 47 years of marriage to someone who lived and breathed photography, absorbing technical information through countless conversations and observations. We start with a simple portrait exercise, Mrs. Hoffman posing beside the window, while I experiment with different lighting angles, using Edward's professional equipment. The difference between these tools and my grandmother's vintage camera is like comparing a bicycle to a sports car. Every adjustment produces immediate visible results that help me understand the relationship between technical settings and artistic vision. Maya, look at this, Mrs. Hoffman says, examining the display on the camera back. After I've taken several test shots, see how changing the aperture affects not just the exposure, but the way the background separates from your subject. Edward called this controlling the viewer's attention through selective focus. The concept makes perfect sense as I review the images, seeing how technical choices translate into emotional impact. In some shots, Mrs. Hoffman appears isolated against a soft blurred background that makes her the undeniable center of attention. In others, the sharp detail of her surroundings creates a different mood, placing her within context rather than separating her from it. By the time we finish the lesson, my notebook contains pages of technical information and artistic observations that represent more learning about photography than I've accomplished in months of experimentation on my own. Mrs. Hoffman walks me to the studio door, her face showing the satisfaction that comes from sharing knowledge with someone genuinely eager to learn. Would you be interested in meeting again next week, Maya? I think we could explore some outdoor photography techniques. If the weather cooperates, I accept immediately, already planning how I'll arrange my work schedule to accommodate regular lessons that feel more valuable than anything I've ever been offered before. Walking home through streets I've traveled thousands of times, Everything looks different through eyes that are beginning to understand how light, composition, and timing work together to create compelling images. That evening at dinner, my parents asked polite questions about my photography lesson, while Jessica displays wedding magazines and discusses the relative merits of different invitation designs. The conversation flows around two parallel tracks that rarely intersect, reflecting how our family has always operated, with Jessica's milestones receiving primary attention, while my activities generate supportive but secondary interest. How was your photography class today, Maya? My mother asks while passing a bowl of green beans around the table. Really educational. Mrs. Hoffman knows a lot about technical aspects that I never understood before. We worked on portrait lighting and learned how different settings affect the final image. That sounds lovely, dear, she responds, but her attention immediately shifts back to Jessica's announcement that Tyler has booked the country club for their engagement party next month. The dismissal stings less than usual because I have something substantial to focus on beyond family dynamics and social hierarchies. Photography lessons represent the beginning of building skills that belong entirely to me, independent of anyone else's opinions or expectations about what I should be doing with my time. Over the following weeks, my Saturday afternoons with Mrs. Hoffman become the highlight of each week. We explore different aspects of photography systematically, starting with technical fundamentals before moving into more complex topics like composition theory and storytelling through images. Edward's extensive library provides reading material that supplements our practical exercises, and I find myself staying up late, studying books about photographic masters and their approaches to capturing human emotion. Mrs. Hoffman proves to be a patient and insightful teacher, someone who understands that learning happens through experimentation and mistakes rather than perfect execution. From the beginning, she encourages me to take risks with unusual angles and lighting conditions, pushing beyond safe choices toward images that reflect my personal vision rather than merely demonstrating technical competence. Maya, photography is ultimately about seeing, she tells me during our fourth lesson, as we review contact sheets from a recent outdoor session. Anyone can learn to operate a camera properly, but learning to see what others miss, that's what separates snapshots from art. Her words resonate because they validate the instincts I've been developing through months of wandering around Riverside with my grandmother's camera, looking for moments and angles that capture something essential about ordinary scenes. Under Mrs. Hoffman's guidance, those instincts begin developing into actual skills that produce consistently better results. Meanwhile, Jessica's engagement party planning consumes increasing amounts of our family's time and attention. Guest lists, menu selections, decoration themes, and entertainment options require constant discussion and decision-making that fills our house with a low-level buzz of excitement and stress. My role in these preparations remains largely practical, addressing invitations, coordinating with vendors, and handling logistics that free other family members to focus on more visible aspects of the celebration. The work doesn't bother me because it's genuinely helpful and because I'm learning to find satisfaction in activities that don't require external recognition or praise. Photography has taught me to appreciate the quiet pleasure of doing something well for its own sake, independent of whether anyone else notices or acknowledges the effort involved. 1 month before Jessica's engagement party, Mrs. Hoffman suggests we attempt our first professional style portrait session using all the techniques we've been practicing individually.
You're ready to put everything together and create some images that showcase what you've learned. Would you be interested in photographing me for a formal portrait that I could give to my children? The request both thrills and terrifies me because it represents the first time someone has trusted me to create something important rather than just practice exercises that don't really matter if they fail. Mrs. Hoffman wants professional quality results for a specific purpose, which means my work needs to meet standards beyond my own satisfaction. We spend the entire afternoon on the portrait session, experimenting with different poses, lighting setups, and background options until we find combinations that capture Mrs. Hoffman's dignified elegance while revealing the warmth and intelligence that make her such exceptional company. I take more than 100 photographs, knowing that professional photographers always shoot extensively to ensure they capture that perfect moment when all elements align. The following week, when we develop and print the best images from the session, I experience something I've never felt before: the profound satisfaction of creating something beautiful that exceeds my own expectations. The final portraits show Mrs. Hoffman as I see her, not just an elderly woman, but someone whose life experience and inner strength are visible in her expression and posture. Maya, these are remarkable, Mrs. Hoffman says, examining the finished prints with obvious pleasure. You've captured something here that goes beyond mere technical proficiency. These images tell a story about who I am, not just what I look like. Her praise means more than any compliment I've ever received, because it comes from someone whose opinion I trust and respect, someone who understands the difference between adequate work and exceptional results. For the first time in my life, I've produced something that makes another person genuinely happy while demonstrating abilities I didn't know I possessed. That evening, I show the portraits to my family during dinner, unable to contain my excitement about what feels like a major breakthrough in developing real photography skills. My parents examine the prints politely, making appropriate comments about technical quality and Mrs. Hoffman's photogenic appearance. "These are very nice, Maya," my father says, handing the photographs back to me. "You're certainly learning a lot from Mrs. Hoffman. Have you given any thought to what you'll do with this new hobby once you've mastered the basics?" The question reveals everything about how my family views my photography education, not as the foundation for potential career development or artistic fulfillment, but as a temporary interest that will eventually be replaced by more practical concerns about employment and relationships. The assumption that learning photography is an end in itself rather than preparation for something larger and more meaningful. Actually, I've been thinking about whether I might be able to do some portrait work for other people, maybe start building a small business around photography services. The suggestion creates a brief silence around the dinner table, my parents exchanging one of their wordless communications while Jessica looks up from her wedding magazine with polite curiosity. "Maya, that's a lovely idea," my mother says carefully, "but you need to be realistic about the market for that kind of work in a place like Riverside. There are already established photographers who handle most of the formal events and family portraits. It might be difficult to compete with people who have years of experience and professional reputations." Her response contains the familiar pattern of acknowledging my interests while simultaneously explaining why pursuing them seriously would be impractical or unlikely to succeed. The assumption that my enthusiasm exceeds my abilities, that professional photography represents a field too competitive and demanding for someone with my limited experience and resources. "Maybe you could do some photography as a sideline while maintaining your regular job," my father suggests. "Keep it as a creative outlet rather than trying to make it your primary source of income." Their advice comes from genuine concern about my financial stability, but it also reflects deeper skepticism about my capacity to transform creative interests into viable career options. The possibility that I might possess enough talent and determination to compete successfully with established professionals apparently falls outside their conception of my capabilities. I don't argue with their assessment because I'm not yet confident enough in my abilities to defend photography as a serious career path. Mrs. Hoffman's encouragement and the quality of my recent work suggest potential worth developing, but months of training don't automatically translate into business success or financial independence. Instead, I focus on continuing to learn and improve through regular lessons with Mrs. Hoffman, treating each session as preparation for opportunities that might emerge once my skills reach professional standards. The uncertainty doesn't diminish my enthusiasm because photography provides satisfaction and purpose that feel more meaningful than anything else I've experienced. 3 weeks later, Jessica's engagement party unfolds at the Pine Ridge Country Club with the fairy tale perfection my mother has been orchestrating for months. The ballroom glows with soft lighting and elegant decorations, creating the kind of sophisticated atmosphere that validates my parents' social aspirations while celebrating Jessica's successful navigation toward appropriate marriage. I spend the evening helping coordinate logistics behind the scenes, ensuring that everything runs smoothly while the celebrated couple receives congratulations and admiration from guests who represent Riverside's most socially prominent families. The work keeps me busy and provides legitimate reasons to avoid conversations about my own romantic prospects or career plans. During a brief break in my duties, I slip outside onto the country club's terrace and discover Tyler's parents discussing wedding photography plans with another couple whose daughter recently married. We used Davidson Studios for Jennifer's wedding, Mrs. Martinez explains. They did beautiful work, but the cost was absolutely astronomical. Nearly $4,000 for the full package, and that didn't even include the engagement photos or the rehearsal dinner coverage. The conversation continues as they compare different photographers' prices and styles, each couple sharing experiences with various professionals who handle Riverside's most important social events. Their discussion reveals a market for high-quality photography services that command substantial fees, suggesting that Mrs. Hoffman's assessment of my potential might be more realistic than my parents' cautious skepticism. That night, I lie awake thinking about wedding photography and the possibility of building skills that could generate significant income while providing creative fulfillment. The technical challenges of capturing important moments under varied lighting conditions, the artistic responsibility of documenting events that families will treasure for decades, the business aspects of marketing services and managing client relationships all represent areas where I could develop expertise through continued learning and practice. The idea of photographing weddings particularly appeals to me because it combines technical skill with storytelling, requiring photographers to capture both formal posed portraits and candid emotional moments that reveal the genuine feelings beneath ceremonial celebrations. The work would challenge me to grow artistically while providing services that create lasting value for families during their most significant milestones. Over the following weeks, I begin researching the wedding photography market more systematically, studying the work of successful professionals and analyzing their approaches to composition, lighting, and client service. Mrs. Hoffman encourages this exploration, sharing stories about Edward's wedding photography career and the satisfaction he found in documenting families' most important celebrations. Maya, wedding photography requires mastering every aspect of the craft, she tells me during one of our lessons. Portraits, candids, group shots, detail work, all under time pressure and with no opportunity for mistakes. But the rewards, both financial and artistic, can be substantial for photographers who develop the necessary skills and reputation. Her encouragement gives me confidence to begin considering photography as a potential career path rather than just an enriching hobby. The combination of creative fulfillment and economic opportunity appeals to me in ways that serving coffee or pursuing conventional employment never have, offering the possibility of building a professional identity around something I genuinely love doing. Meanwhile, Jessica's wedding planning accelerates toward the spring ceremony that will represent the culmination of my parents' investment in her social development. Vendor selections, dress fittings, menu tastings, and dozens of other decisions require constant attention and discussion, filling our house with the controlled chaos of coordinating a major celebration. My role in these preparations continues to be primarily supportive, handling practical details that allow other family members to focus on more visible aspects of the event. The work provides opportunities to observe professional event coordination from behind the scenes, noting how successful celebrations require careful attention to timing, logistics, and contingency planning. These observations prove valuable as I begin to understand wedding photography not just as artistic expression but as professional service that must integrate seamlessly with other vendors and family expectations. Successful wedding photographers need business skills as well as creative abilities, requiring them to manage complex schedules, work effectively with other professionals, and deliver consistent results under pressure. The realization that photography represents a legitimate career path, requiring diverse skills rather than just artistic talent changes how I approach my lessons with Mrs. Hoffman. Instead of focusing exclusively on creative development, I begin asking questions about business practices, client relations, and the practical aspects of operating a photography service. Mrs. Hoffman responds to these inquiries with stories about Edward's professional experiences and advice about developing both artistic and business competencies necessary for long-term success. Her guidance helps me understand that building a photography career requires systematic development of multiple skill areas, rather than just improving technical abilities with cameras and lighting. Maya, Edward always said that successful photographers are small business owners who happen to use cameras as their primary tool. Understanding marketing, customer service, financial management, and professional networking matters as much as mastering aperture settings and composition rules. This broader perspective on photography as a business opportunity rather than just creative pursuit begins to shape my long-term thinking about career development and financial independence. Instead of viewing photography as an alternative to conventional employment, I start seeing it as a path toward building something substantial and entirely my own. The possibility of eventual independence from family expectations and social pressures through professional success, in a field I'm passionate about, provides motivation that sustains me through the daily routine of coffee shop work and wedding planning assistance. Every Saturday lesson with Mrs. Hoffman, every technical skill mastered, every successful image created represents progress toward goals that feel achievable for the first time in my adult life. As winter deepens into the gray, wet months that define Pacific Northwest seasons, my photography skills continue developing through regular practice and Mrs. Hoffman's patient instruction. We've moved beyond basic technical training into more sophisticated areas like advanced lighting techniques, business planning, and portfolio development that positions me to begin seeking professional opportunities. The transformation in my work over 6 months of intensive learning surprises even Mrs. Hoffman, who comments frequently on the rapid improvement in both technical execution and artistic vision that my recent images demonstrate. Maya, you have a natural eye for capturing emotion and telling stories through your photographs. Combined with the technical skills you've developed, I believe you're ready to begin taking on some paid assignments to test your abilities in professional situations. Her assessment both excites and terrifies me because it suggests I might actually possess enough competence to compete with established photographers for real business. The transition from student to professional represents a significant leap that requires confidence in my abilities as well as willingness to risk failure in pursuit of meaningful success. That same week, an opportunity presents itself in the form of a conversation with Jake at the coffee shop about his sister's upcoming wedding. The family has been struggling to find affordable photography services that meet their quality expectations, with most professional photographers pricing their services beyond what the Morrison family budget can accommodate. Maya, I know you've been learning photography with Mrs. Hoffman, Jake says during a quiet afternoon at the shop,
would you be interested in photographing Sarah's wedding? It's small, maybe 50 people, and we can't afford the big-name photographers, but we want someone who will do a good job capturing the day. The request represents everything I've been working toward, an opportunity to test my skills in a real professional situation while providing valuable service to people I care about. The stakes feel manageable because Jake understands my experience level, but significant enough to demonstrate whether months of training have prepared me for actual wedding photography. Jake, I'd be honored to photograph Sarah's wedding. Let me talk with Mrs. Hoffman about what we should charge and how to structure the arrangement professionally. Over the next several days, Mrs. Hoffman and I develop a comprehensive plan for my first professional wedding assignment, including equipment lists, timeline planning, and pricing structures that reflect my current skill level while establishing professional credibility. The preparation process reveals how much I've learned, not just about photography, but about presenting myself as a competent service provider rather than an amateur experimenting with new interests. The wedding takes place on a sunny Saturday in March, at a small church outside Riverside, with the reception following at the community center, where Jake and I first met during a high school volunteer event years earlier. The familiar venue reduces my nervousness while providing good opportunities to practice the full range of wedding photography skills Mrs. Hoffman has taught me. From the bride's preparation through the ceremony and reception, I work with focused intensity to capture both the formal moments that families expect and the candid interactions that reveal genuine emotion beneath ceremonial traditions. The technical challenges of changing light conditions, group portrait logistics, and capturing spontaneous moments push me to apply everything I've learned while developing new problem-solving skills on the spot. When I deliver the finished photographs 2 weeks later, Jake's family's reaction exceeds even my most optimistic expectations. The images successfully document their celebration while revealing the love, joy, and family connections that made the day meaningful for everyone involved. Maya, these are absolutely beautiful, Sarah says, examining the prints with tears in her eyes. You've captured moments I didn't even know were happening, but when I see them now, they perfectly represent how the whole day felt. Her response confirms what Mrs. Hoffman has been teaching me about the difference between mere documentation and artistic interpretation that enhances rather than simply records important events. The wedding photographs tell a story about Sarah and her new husband that goes beyond surface appearances to reveal the emotional significance of their commitment to each other and their families. The success of my first professional wedding assignment provides confidence to begin marketing photography services more actively, starting with other families who are seeking affordable alternatives to established photographers whose prices place professional documentation beyond their reach. Word-of-mouth recommendations from Jake's family create opportunities to photograph several more weddings over the spring season, each assignment building my portfolio while developing business skills necessary for long-term success. By early summer, my photography work generates enough income to reduce my hours at the coffee shop while maintaining the financial independence that allows me to live according to my own values and priorities, rather than family expectations about appropriate career choices. The transition from employee to entrepreneur feels both liberating and challenging, requiring me to develop new competencies in marketing, client relations, and financial management. Mrs. Hoffman continues providing guidance and encouragement as my business develops, sharing Edward's insights about building professional reputation through consistent quality work and exceptional customer service. Her support proves invaluable during the inevitable learning experiences that come with translating creative skills into viable business operations. Maya, you're discovering what Edward learned over 30 years of professional photography. Success comes from understanding that your job is to help families preserve their most important memories in ways that increase rather than diminish the joy they felt during those celebrations. Her words provide perspective that helps me maintain focus on service rather than self-promotion as I build relationships with clients and develop the reputation necessary for sustainable business growth. The work itself provides more satisfaction than anything I've previously experienced, combining creative expression with meaningful contribution to other people's lives during their most significant moments. As Jessica's own wedding date approaches, my parents begin discussing photography arrangements with the casual assumption that family members will handle documentation rather than hiring professional services. The suggestion that I might photograph my sister's wedding represents both recognition of my developing skills and expectation that family obligations take precedence over business considerations. The request creates complex emotions because it offers opportunity to demonstrate my abilities in the most visible possible context while potentially compromising the professional boundaries I've been working to establish. Photographing Jessica's wedding would provide incredible exposure to Riverside's most influential families, but it would also position me as the family photographer rather than an independent professional with her own business priorities. Maya, we were thinking you could handle Jessica's wedding photography, my mother announces during dinner one evening. It would save us quite a bit of money, and you've been getting so much better with that camera of yours. The casual tone of her request reveals how my family continues to view my photography work as a convenient hobby rather than a legitimate professional service, worthy of the same respect they would show established businesses. The assumption that I would provide significant services without compensation because family members should help each other reflects their persistent inability to recognize my growing competence and business success. The conversation forces me to confront questions about family loyalty versus professional integrity that will influence how my photography career develops and how my relationships with parents and sister evolve as I establish independence from their expectations and assumptions about my capabilities and priorities. The phone call comes on a Tuesday morning while I'm editing photographs from a recent anniversary session. 6 months have passed since I declined to photograph Jessica's wedding for free, a decision that created tension but established professional boundaries essential for my business development. Mom's voice carries artificial brightness when delivering news she expects will be poorly received. Maya, honey, I need to talk to you about something important. Corbin is in trouble again, and we really need your help this time. My stomach tightens at the mention of our cousin Corbin, who has spent 3 years cycling through financial disasters that somehow always require family intervention. The pattern has become predictable, and I've learned to recognize warning signs long before actual requests materialize. He invested in some cryptocurrency scheme that turned out to be fraudulent, and now he owes money to some very unpleasant people. We're all contributing what we can, but we're still short of the amount he needs. The familiar script unfolds exactly as expected, with family members pooling resources to rescue Corbin from consequences of his poor decisions, while he learns nothing and prepares to repeat similar mistakes. How much money does he need, Mom? $15,000 total, but we've already raised most of it. We just need about $4,000 more. Maya, I know you've been doing well with your photography business, and this is family. We help each other when things get desperate. $4,000 represents 2 months of income from my photography work, money I've been saving toward professional equipment that would allow me to compete with established photographers in the Portland market. More importantly, the assumption that my business success makes me responsible for solving Corbin's problems reveals how my family continues viewing my work as a resource for their priorities, rather than a legitimate career requiring careful financial management. Mom, I'm sorry Corbin is having problems, but I can't loan that much money right now. I'm saving for equipment purchases, essential for growing my business. Maya, I'm surprised to hear you talking this way. Since when do cameras matter more than helping family members in real danger? This isn't about business investments, this is about Corbin's safety. Her words carry familiar emotional manipulation that positions my refusal as evidence of selfishness. The implication that pursuing professional goals represents moral failure when family members need assistance, regardless of whether those members created their difficulties through repeated poor judgment. I understand Corbin is scared, Mom, but lending him money won't solve the underlying problem of his decision-making. He's been in financial trouble 4 times in 3 years, and family bailouts haven't helped him develop better judgment. The conversation continues with escalating emotional appeals designed to override my practical objections. My mother cycles through guilt-inducing scenarios, questions whether success has made me forget family loyalty, and describes potential violence in vivid detail. Over following days, my phone buzzes with messages from various family members recruited to convince me that refusing help represents heartless abandonment. Jessica sends emotional appeals about family unity. My father discusses moral obligations as someone blessed with business success. The pressure intensifies when Aunt Linda calls crying, describing threats Corbin claims to have received. Her genuine fear makes my refusal seem cruel, even though logic tells me enabling Corbin's irresponsibility won't protect him from future consequences. But Mrs. Hoffman's voice echoes from countless conversations about professional boundaries. Edward had faced similar family expectations during early photography business years, and maintaining professional priorities, despite personal relationships, proved essential for sustainable success. 3 days later, I receive a desperate text from Corbin himself, sent at 2 in the morning. Maya, I know we're not super close, but I'm really scared. These people are serious about collecting what I owe, and I don't know what else to do. Everyone says you're doing great with photography and might be able to help. Please don't let me get hurt over something this stupid. After a sleepless night walking riverside streets with my camera, I reach a decision reflecting both concern for Corbin's welfare and commitment to maintaining boundaries that enabled my success. Instead of lending $4,000 directly, I offer to hire him as business assistant for weekend weddings, paying rates that could generate needed money over several months while teaching marketable skills. Corbin's response reveals everything about his attitude toward work and problem solving. Instead of gratitude for earning opportunity, he expresses frustration that I won't simply write a check to make problems disappear immediately. Maya, I appreciate the job offer, but carrying equipment isn't going to solve my problem fast enough. These people want money in 2 weeks, not 2 months. Can't you just loan what I need now? His response confirms my instincts about enabling versus helping were correct. Corbin wants the quickest solution requiring minimum effort, rather than addressing underlying attitudes that created difficulties. 2 weeks pass, without further contact from Corbin or updates about his alleged crisis, suggesting either he found alternative solutions, or dramatic urgency was exaggerated. The silence provides relief and confirmation that maintaining boundaries, rather than providing immediate bailouts, was appropriate. During this period, my photography business continues growing through client referrals and strategic marketing. The income I refuse to loan Corbin pays for professional lighting equipment that significantly improves wedding photography quality and allows more effective competition for premium assignments. 3 months later, Martha Caldwell, Riverside's most prominent wedding planner, calls to discuss hiring me as preferred photographer for her high-end roster. Maya, I've been hearing wonderful things about your work from families who hired you recently. Your combination of artistic vision and professional reliability is exactly what my clients seek. I'd like to discuss an exclusive arrangement beneficial for both of us. The opportunity exists because I invested in developing professional skills rather than depleting resources through family loans. Equipment purchases that seemed selfish when Corbin needed funding now enable work that attracts clients paying rates comparable to photographers with decades more experience. That evening brings another call illuminating how dramatically my circumstances changed since family pressure about Corbin's crisis. Jessica's voice carries excitement mixed with anxiety, describing her own developing disaster. Maya, Tyler and I are having problems with our wedding photographer. We need to find someone else who
can handle everything on short notice. Mom suggested I call you. 8 months ago, my parents assumed I would photograph the ceremony free, as family favor, dismissing photography as hobby. Now facing genuine crisis, they're willing to hire me as legitimate service provider. What kind of problems are you having? Jessica explains business practices. Mrs. Hoffman warned against double booking dates, increasing fees after contracts, refusing services without additional upfront payments. Maya, we've lost our deposit, and finding another photographer with 6 weeks' notice is almost impossible. Everyone's booked or charging prices we can't afford. You're really our only option. Jessica, I'd be happy to photograph your wedding, but I'll need to charge standard professional rates for the full package. This would be business arrangement, not family favor, with contracts and payment schedules like any other client. When I quote current rates reflecting professional standards developed through 2 years of growth, Jessica's reaction reveals how family perception of my work has transformed. That's actually less than we were paying the other photographer, and based on portfolios from your recent weddings, your work is at least as good. Maya, would you really save our wedding like this? Jessica's wedding day unfolds with fairy tale perfection that 2 years of planning created. Working as photographer rather than helpful sister transforms my perspective from family obligation to creative opportunity. Instead of serving behind scenes, I focus entirely on documenting moments that tell Jessica and Tyler's commitment story. During reception, my parents approach with expressions combining gratitude, pride, and perhaps embarrassment about earlier dismissive attitudes. Maya, these photographs are absolutely beautiful, my mother says, examining camera display images with amazement. I had no idea you'd become so accomplished. You're capturing moments we would have missed if we'd hired someone who didn't know our family. My father's assessment proves even more surprising. Maya, I owe you an apology for not taking your photography seriously. Watching you handle Jessica's wedding with such professionalism and seeing these results, I realize I completely underestimated what you were building. When I delivered Jessica's completed album 6 weeks later, family response exceeds every expectation about how my work might be received by people who knew me before professional success transformed their. Maya, this album is absolutely perfect, Jessica says tearfully. You've created something treasured by our family for generations. I can't believe I'm so lucky to have a sister who could give us this incredible gift. 6 months after Jessica's wedding, my photography business reaches milestones that seemed impossible during early conversations with Mrs. Hoffman about basic camera operation. Martha's exclusive arrangement provides steady income from high-end Pacific Northwest clients, while local referrals continue generating opportunities throughout Riverside and surrounding communities. Financial success enables purchasing a house in the newer development, establishing independence reflecting professional achievement rather than family assistance. More importantly, photography provides daily satisfaction, combining artistic expression with meaningful service to families during significant celebrations. Success creates opportunities, giving back through photography workshops at the community center, teaching basic skills to those sharing interest in visual storytelling but lacking professional instruction access. Mrs. Hoffman attends my first workshop as honored guest, providing credibility, connecting my current teaching to generous instruction that made career development possible. Among students, I discover David Martinez, demonstrating exceptional ability, reminding me of my own determination during early lessons. His portfolio develops rapidly, suggesting professional potential if properly supported. Maya, I've been thinking about photographing small weddings to gain experience. He tells me after successful workshop sessions, would you look at my recent work and give honest feedback about readiness for paid assignments? Over following months, I work with David developing technical skills, business knowledge, and professional presentation, sharing everything learned about building photography careers. His progress exceeds expectations, demonstrating natural ability combined with work ethic, predicting long-term success. When David successfully photographs his first wedding using our practice techniques, his excitement reminds me of feelings after completing Jake's sister's wedding years earlier. The learning, growth, and teaching cycle creates continuity extending beyond individual achievement to creative community contribution. 6 months later, David proposes collaboration on assignments requiring 2 photographers for large celebrations. Maya, I know I still have much to learn, but I think we could work well together on bigger weddings where you need ceremony and reception coverage assistance. Our first collaboration proves successful beyond expectations, with David's assistance enabling more comprehensive coverage while his fresh perspective contributes creative ideas enhancing final results. As my third photography anniversary approaches, I recognize how completely life transformed through pursuing creative interests family initially dismissed as impractical. Photography business provides financial independence, creative fulfillment, and professional recognition exceeding optimistic expectations when the journey began. The transformation demonstrates alternative career paths can lead to achievement and satisfaction conventional employment might never provide, validating decisions to pursue artistic interests despite family skepticism and social pressure towards safer options. On a sunny Saturday morning, I received the culmination call representing everything worked towards since first learning Edward's equipment operation. Maya, this is Jennifer Walsh from Northwest Wedding Magazine. We've been following your work through wedding planner recommendations, and we'd like to feature your photography in our annual showcase of rising regional talent. The magazine feature appears 3 months later, showcasing 12 wedding photographs alongside interview content describing my journey from coffee shop employee to professional photographer through mentorship, education, and systematic skill development. Publication generates immediate business inquiries from prospective clients throughout Oregon and Washington, creating demand requiring expanded service capacity through David collaboration and potentially additional partners. Mrs. Hoffman's response to the feature carries emotion, revealing how much my success means as validation of Edward's teaching philosophy. Maya, dear, seeing your work in this prestigious publication brings me more joy than I can express. Edward always believed photography's greatest value came from helping people preserve important memories, and you're carrying forward that mission beautifully. As I prepare for my 4th professional year, business continues growing through referrals and recognition, creating Pacific Northwest demand. Success enables advanced equipment reinvestment, continued education, and expansion, positioning sustained growth rather than just maintaining current levels. The magazine recognition attracts attention from extended family members who hadn't closely followed my career development. Cousin Sarah calls from California expressing amazement about my professional achievement, her voice carrying genuine pride about a family member who pursued unconventional success. Maya, I had no idea you'd become such an accomplished photographer. The images in this magazine are absolutely stunning, and reading about your business success makes me so proud to be related to someone who followed her dreams and made them reality. More importantly, professional success creates opportunities to expand my impact beyond individual client service. I begin developing photography mentorship programs for young adults in Riverside who show artistic potential but lack resources for professional training. The workshops provide structured learning environments where participants can develop technical skills while exploring creative vision through supportive community engagement. During one workshop session, a 17-year-old named Emma shows remarkable instinctive understanding of composition and lighting, reminding me of my own early fascination with capturing moments that reveal emotional truth beneath surface appearances. Her family circumstances mirror my own early experiences, with parents who view artistic pursuits as impractical distractions from more sensible career planning. Emma approaches me after class with portfolio images that demonstrate genuine talent needing only technical refinement and professional guidance to reach impressive quality levels. Her photographs capture candid moments around Riverside with sensitivity that suggests natural ability for storytelling through visual imagery. Maya, I've been thinking about applying to art schools for photography programs, but my parents think I should focus on something more practical like business or nursing. Do you think it's possible to make a real living as a photographer? Her question brings me back to similar conversations with Mrs. Hoffman years earlier, when my own artistic interests seemed too risky to pursue seriously despite providing satisfaction that conventional employment never offered. The opportunity to provide encouragement and practical guidance to someone facing identical challenges feels like completing a meaningful cycle of mentorship and support. Emma, photography can definitely provide stable income and career satisfaction if you're willing to develop both creative and business skills systematically. But success requires persistence, continuous learning, and willingness to maintain professional standards even when family or friends don't initially understand your goals. Over following months, I work with Emma developing her portfolio while teaching business aspects of photography that art schools often neglect. Her progress exceeds expectations, and by spring she receives acceptance letters from several respected photography programs along with scholarship opportunities that make education financially feasible. The mentoring relationship provides personal fulfillment that business success alone hasn't delivered, creating connections based on shared creative passion rather than financial transactions. Watching Emma develop confidence in her artistic vision while learning practical skills necessary for professional success reminds me why photography matters beyond income generation or career advancement. Meanwhile, my collaboration with David evolves into formal business partnership that allows us to handle larger weddings and multiple simultaneous assignments throughout busy season. Our complementary strengths create service quality that exceeds what either photographer could provide individually, generating client satisfaction levels that translate into premium pricing and extensive referral networks. The partnership also enables geographic expansion beyond Riverside into Portland and Seattle markets, where higher-end clients pay rates that establish true financial independence while providing creative challenges that prevent work from becoming routine or merely financially motivated. During particularly busy weekend, David and I photographed 3 different weddings across 2 states, coordinating logistics that would have been impossible for individual photographer to manage effectively. The experience demonstrates how strategic collaboration can multiply opportunities while maintaining quality standards that protect professional reputation. Maya, I can't believe how much our business has grown since we started working together, David tells me while reviewing images from that weekend's assignments. 6 months ago, I was restaurant assistant manager dreaming about photography career, and now we're booking clients throughout the Pacific Northwest. His excitement reflects my own amazement at rapid business development that exceeded every projection I made during early planning stages. The combination of artistic passion, professional discipline, and strategic partnership has created opportunities that seemed impossible when I first began learning basic camera operation in Mrs. Hoffman's garage studio. Success also creates unexpected reunion opportunity when Martha Caldwell mentions that one of her high-profile clients specifically requested my services after seeing wedding photographs I'd taken for her sister's celebration 2 years earlier. Maya, the Blackwood family is planning their daughter's wedding for next spring at the Riverfront Hotel, and they've insisted on hiring you as their photographer. This is going to be one of the most prestigious weddings in Portland next year, with guest list including several prominent business leaders and political figures. The Blackwood Commission represents culmination of everything I've worked towards since establishing photography business. Their wedding will showcase my skills to influential families throughout the region, creating visibility that could transform my local reputation into statewide recognition among clients who pay premium rates for exceptional service. More significantly, the opportunity validates every difficult decision I made about maintaining professional boundaries and investing in skill development rather than depleting resources for family members' financial crises. The equipment purchases that seemed selfish when Corbin needed emergency funding now enable work that attracts the region's most demanding clients. As wedding planning begins for the Blackwood celebration, I recognize how completely my life has transformed through pursuing creative interests that family initially dismissed.
The shy coffee shop employee who hid behind oversized sweaters has become confident professional photographer whose work is sought by families throughout the Pacific Northwest. The transformation required more than technical skill development, encompassing personal growth that enabled me to maintain boundaries, pursue goals despite skepticism, and build professional reputation through consistent quality service. Every challenge overcome during business development process contributed to capabilities that now create opportunities I never imagined possible. Most importantly, success provides platform for continuing the mentorship cycle that enabled my own development. Mrs. Hoffman's generous instruction and Edward's equipment legacy created foundation for achievements that now allow me to support other aspiring photographers through similar guidance and resource sharing. The journey from coffee shop employee to featured photographer demonstrates that alternative career paths can exceed expectations while providing satisfaction conventional employment might never deliver. Success required patience, systematic development, boundary maintenance, and willingness to pursue creative interests despite family skepticism and social pressure towards safer options. But the greatest validation comes not from professional recognition or financial independence but from family members who now genuinely understand and appreciate what I've built through years of dedicated effort. Their transformation from dismissive skepticism to proud support reflects my own growth from uncertain beginner to confident professional whose work creates lasting value for others. The phone rings as I'm preparing for Emma's portfolio review session, and Jessica's excited voice fills my home office with news that brings everything full circle. Maya, Tyler and I just found out we're expecting our first baby, and we want you to photograph our maternity session and newborn portraits when the time comes. After seeing how beautifully you captured our wedding, we can't imagine trusting anyone else with documenting our growing family. Her request represents complete acceptance of my professional competence and artistic vision, acknowledging that my photography skills have become integral to preserving our family's most important milestones. The recognition feels even more meaningful because it comes from someone who witnessed my entire transformation from overlooked sister to successful businesswoman. As I accept Jessica's commission and return to preparing Emma's lesson materials, I reflect on how pursuing creative passion despite family resistance ultimately created stronger relationships based on mutual respect rather than dismissive assumptions about my capabilities and potential. The mirror that once reflected uncertainty now shows someone who built meaningful career through determination, mentorship, and willingness to maintain boundaries necessary for sustainable success. 7 years after that first photography lesson with Mrs. Hoffman, I've become the professional she always believed I could be while helping others discover similar potential within themselves. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out.